May your day and your entire week be deeply blessed, and may you find clarity and peace as we explore today's topic together. Welcome to another deep dive.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, today we are setting out on a pretty big mission to explore a truly radical concept of freedom. We're diving into this ancient text, Galatians chapter 5, and our insights today are drawn from a really fascinating synthesis of two sources, the Holman Study Bible and the NAA Study Bible.
Right, which are both just incredibly comprehensive.
Exactly. And, if you ask anyone today to define freedom, you are almost certainly going to hear some version of absolute autonomy.
Oh, absolutely. Just, the ability to do whatever you want.
Right, like whenever you want, without anyone telling you otherwise. But the historical sources we're unpacking today argue that true freedom looks entirely different, and it might actually involve more restraint, not less.
Which is just a completely counterintuitive paradigm for the modern mind. Because, we've basically been conditioned to equate any form of restraint with, imprisonment.
Yeah, exactly.
But the author of this text, Paul, he presents this framework where true liberation is found in a very specific kind of boundary. And the historical context here is it's incredibly tense.
Oh, I bet. So what was actually going on there?
Well, early Christians in this region of Galatia were facing massive pressure from a group historically known as the Judaizers. And these were teachers who argued that, faith in Christ was a great start, but it just wasn't enough.
Like it was incomplete somehow.
Precisely. They basically said that to truly earn your salvation, to be justified, you had to also adopt strict religious laws, specifically the physical requirement of circumcision.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because Paul makes this massive, really uncompromising claim in the very first dozen verses of this chapter.
He really doesn't hold back.
No, not at all. He essentially says that Christ liberated people specifically for freedom, and to go back to trying to earn your standing through rigid adherence to the law, that's returning to a yoke of slavery. It's like you're willingly picking the chains back up.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating here is the psychology behind why someone would actually choose to willingly pick those chains back up. Paul uses this incredibly intense language in verse 4.
Right. He gets pretty intense.
He does. He warns that those who try to be justified by the law are severed from Christ and have fallen from grace. Now, just to be clear on the theology here, based on the study notes, the scholarly consensus is that Paul isn't debating whether a genuine believer just suddenly gets their salvation revoked.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a threat about being kicked out of the club if you make a mistake.
No, not at all. It's about losing the entire perspective of the relationship. When he says they have fallen from grace, he means they've abandoned the whole ecosystem of grace.
Because they're trying to earn it.
Right. If you introduce human effort as the mechanism to earn your standing, you step entirely outside the realm of a gift. You cannot simultaneously receive a free gift and try to pay for it.
Wow. Yeah. I was actually trying to visualize the absurdity of this earlier, and it reminds me of this scenario with a bank. Imagine the bank calls you up and completely forgives your massive 30-year mortgage.
Okay, that's a great day.
Right. The debt is entirely wiped clean. The house is officially yours. But instead of just living in it freely, you keep driving to the bank lobby every single Friday.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, you wait in line, and you try to hand the teller these crumpled $20 bills and spare change to pay it off.
That is a perfect visualization. Because, showing up with those crumpled bills isn't just unnecessary. It's actually a profound insult to the one who cleared the debt.
Yeah, it really is.
It implies you don't trust the transaction was real, or worse, that you're just too proud to accept charity.
Right. You're demanding to be treated like a debtor because you want the credit for paying it off yourself.
Exactly.
And Paul hits on this exact psychology when he talks about the scandal of the cross. It's scandalous precisely because it destroys human pride. It just completely dismantles our meritocracy.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of human nature, we desperately want a meritocracy when it comes to our morality. We want a checklist.
Because it makes us feel secure.
Secure and superior. Because if salvation requires me to follow a strict set of rules and I follow them with, say, 80% accuracy while my neighbor only hits 40%.
You get to feel better about yourself.
Exactly. I get a status boost.
Go.
So the cross is a scandal because it levels the playing field to absolute zero. It says human effort contributes absolutely nothing to justification. It completely robs us of our bragging rights.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. And to show how dangerous that pride really is, the notes point out how Paul uses this metaphor of yeast.
Right, the little bit of yeast.
Yeah, he warns that a little bit of yeast leavens the whole batch of dough. It only takes a tiny amount of false teaching, like adding just one single physical rule as a requirement to infect the entire community.
Because the moment you compromise on the principle of grace just a little bit, the whole system just shifts back to human effort.
It's like you've rebuilt the factory of slavery. You're right back on the assembly line trying to prove your worth.
Yes, exactly.
But here's where it gets really interesting, though. If we completely kill that transaction, if we tell people they are totally free, the rules don't save them, and human effort doesn't justify them, the immediate logical pushback is, well, doesn't that just lead to absolute chaos?
Oh, sure, people panic.
Right. If there is no heavy legal hammer hanging over our heads, what stops society from just descending into total selfishness? Like, what stops us from acting terribly?
And this raises such an important question. It's actually the exact vulnerability Paul anticipates here. He definitively affirms that believers are called to freedom. The chains are off. But then he issues this massive caveat.
Okay, what is it?
He says, do not use that freedom as an opportunity for the flesh. And the Greek concept that's translated as opportunity essentially means a staging ground or a base of operations.
So basically using your newfound freedom as a license to just indulge every selfish impulse you have.
Precisely. So true freedom, at least in this ancient text, isn't the absence of boundaries. It's freedom bounded by a completely new standard.
Okay, so what is the new standard if it's not a list of rules?
Instead of a massive, exhaustive legal code dictating every tiny behavior, this freedom is channeled into one overarching command: serve one another through love.
Wow, so it's like the ultimate compression algorithm for morality. The notes emphasize that the entire moral law is fulfilled in this single phrase, love your neighbor as yourself.
Right. You don't need 1,000 localized rules if the core programming is just running on love.
But what happens when that core programming crashes? Because it does crash.
It absolutely does. And Paul provides a very stark warning about that in verse 15. He says if people reject this mutual love and turn back to their selfish desires, they will literally bite and devour one another.
Bite and devour, that's graphic.
It is. And the study notes suggest this wasn't just a hypothetical warning. Paul was likely receiving reports of severe, destructive infighting that was just completely tearing these early Galatian churches apart.
You know, you see this dynamic constantly today, too.
Oh, all the time.
Think about toxic online communities or unmoderated comment sections. You have people with total freedom of speech, absolute anonymity, and zero physical rules constraining them.
And what's the result?
Right. Without love or mutual respect as the guardrail, that total autonomy just becomes an excuse to tear others down. It becomes predatory. You see it in intense workplace rivalries, too, where people constantly backstab and scheme over minor things.
Exactly. Total freedom minus empathy just equals weaponized selfishness.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why the legalists thought the strict rules were necessary in the first place.
Oh, they saw the mess and wanted the rules back.
Right. They looked at that predatory behavior and said, see, we need the chains back on. But Paul's arguing for a third way. Not the chains of the law and not the chaos of selfishness, but the self-restraint of love.
So what does this all mean for our daily lives? Because, you know, knowing we should love our neighbors really easy in theory.
Oh, incredibly easy to say.
But actually doing it when someone is actively annoying us or competing against us, that feels basically impossible. How does the text say we actually accomplish this?
Well, Paul doesn't pretend it's easy. He introduces the reality of this brutal internal civil war. There's this constant agonizing tug of war between the flesh, which represents our natural, selfish, inward-focused human desires, and the spirit.
And they're totally opposed to each other.
Directly in opposition. The text states explicitly that they are fighting to prevent us from just defaulting to whatever we want to do.
You know, there is a really fascinating detail from the source's word study box regarding the word for spirit here.
Ah, yes, the Greek word pneuma.
Yeah, pneuma, which also means breath or wind.
Right, and it's so crucial to understand that pneuma is not just some static concept. Wind is an active, empowering force. In this framework, the Spirit breathes life into the believer. It helps them conquer that inward-focused gravity of the flesh.
I love that idea of wind because it totally changes how we think about effort. Like if you are rowing a boat, that is all human effort. It's exhausting, you sweat, and eventually you just run out of muscle. That's the law.
I love that analogy.
But if you raise a sail and catch the wind's doing the heavy lifting. You still have to choose to raise the sail, but the power source is external.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. You are participating, but you're not manufacturing the power. But when we choose to drop the sail and we start rowing with our own selfish desires, well, the text provides a very specific list of the results. It calls them the works of the flesh.
Okay, let's look at that specific list because this is where I actually need to push back a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
The text lists things like idolatry and sorcery, which we would all universally agree are profound moral failures. But right alongside them in the exact same list are very common social behaviors.
Yeah, it lists enmities, strife, jealousy.
Fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, envy, like our office, gossip, and feeling a little bit jealous really categorized on the exact same level as profound moral failures like sorcery. That feels like a massive leap.
It definitely shocks our modern sensibilities because, our society categorizes sins by how illegal or socially taboo they are. But if we use the study notes to look at why they're grouped this way, it actually makes perfect sense.
Why is that?
Because these social sins are deeply destructive for the exact same reason idolatry is. They originate from humanity rejecting God and turning completely inward.
So it's about what's happening at the core.
Exactly. Idolatry is replacing the Creator with a substitute. Jealousy and rivalry are replacing the well-being of your neighbor with the absolute supremacy of yourself. They're all forms of rebellion that destroy the relationships we were designed to have. It fragments human connection just as thoroughly as any extreme moral failure.
Wow. That makes those everyday behaviors feel a lot more dangerous. And there's a vital nuance from the notes regarding the warning attached to this list. The text says that those who do these things will not inherit the kingdom of God.
Which is a terrifying phrase if you misread it.
Right, because when you read that after a list that includes jealousy and fits of anger, it's so easy to just feel immediate panic. Because who hasn't been angry or jealous this week?
Exactly. But this is where the Greek grammar provides immense clarity. The text uses a specific present participle here, prosontes.
Which translates to what, practically speaking?
It refers to a continuous practice. It describes a persistent pattern of life, not an isolated stumble or just an internal struggle.
Oh, okay. That's a huge distinction.
It really is. The scholars emphasize that Paul is not talking about a moment of weakness when someone cuts you off in traffic. He's describing someone whose fundamental, ongoing lifestyle is entirely characterized by these destructive works, showing absolutely zero evidence of the Spirit.
That distinction totally changes the paradigm. It shifts the focus away from a standard of flawless perfection, which would just throw us right back into the slavery of the law, and instead asks us to examine the trajectory of our lives.
Exactly.
Which leads perfectly into how we actually measure that trajectory, cultivating the fruit.
And the linguistic contrast Paul sets up here is just brilliant. We just talked about the works of the flesh. The word works intrinsically implies human manufacturing.
Like effort and sweat.
Right, building something on an assembly line.
Yeah.
But when he shifts to the positive traits, he abandons the language of manufacturing entirely. He calls them the fruit of the Spirit.
Think about the physics of growing a garden. You don't build an apple in a factory.
No, you don't.
You can't just stand in your backyard, yell at a tree branch, and command it to produce a piece of fruit through sheer willpower.
That would be ridiculous.
Right. The only way fruit grows is if the branch stays quietly connected to the tree. The fruit grows organically over time. And similarly, believers are instructed to crucify the flesh, effectively starving the bad root, and let the Spirit produce the results organically.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanism of change here. You don't manufacture patience on an assembly line. You stay connected, and patience grows.
So let's break down the specific list of fruit because it's fascinating. We have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
What's really interesting from the notes is the deliberate sequence here.
Yeah.
Love is listed first, very intentionally.
Because it's the foundation.
Exactly. It's the root from which all the other qualities grow. Without love, kindness is just manipulation, and goodness is just performative.
And then there's patience. The notes point out that older translations use the word long-suffering, which is such a descriptive word. It means trusting God's timing and plan rather than forcing our own aggressive agenda.
Right, especially when dealing with difficult people.
Yeah. And then I noticed self-control is strategically placed at the very end.
Yes, equatia.
Why put it at the very end as the final one?
Because it acts as the final discipline that keeps all those wild passions and desires in check. In a chapter warning about the destructive desires of the flesh, self-control is the necessary restraint that bookends the whole list.
You know, it's amazing to step back and reflect on how radically different this list is from what modern society often values.
Oh, it's basically the exact opposite.
Right. If you look at our culture today, the things we are explicitly told to cultivate are power, hustle, dominance, crushing the competition.
We essentially celebrate the works of the flesh, rivalry, ambition, and we just package it and call it success.
Exactly. But this ancient text is saying that true success and true freedom actually looks like gentleness. It looks like peace. It looks like self-control. It turns the entire modern value system completely upside down.
It really does. And adopting that flipped value system requires a completely different way of moving through the world. In verse 25, Paul writes, "If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit."
Keep in step. That's an interesting phrase.
It is. The phrase "keep in step" implies a steady, deliberate walk. True spiritual growth isn't a magical, instantaneous teleportation to perfection.
You don't just wake up flawless one day.
Right. You don't just stop struggling with jealousy overnight. It's a daily, rhythmic choice to align your pace with the Spirit, one single step at a time.
We started today's deep dive by talking about how society defines freedom as absolute autonomy. But if doing whatever you want just makes you a slave to your own anger and endless desires, that's not freedom. True freedom is finally having the power to walk in the right direction.
And if we really want to apply that idea of keeping in step, here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over as we close. We just discussed how fruit is the organic byproduct of whatever root system you are connected to. So take a hard look at your digital footprint from the last 7 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Look at your text messages, your browser history, your calendar, and your bank statement, based on where your time, your money, and your attention actually went. Which root are you actively watering? Are you financing the works of the flesh, or are you cultivating the fruit of the Spirit?
Man, that is a heavy and vital question for all of us to carry this week. Thank you to our expert for being here, and thank you all for joining us on this journey through Galatians 5. May God bless all of you listening. Until next time, keep exploring.